What is up? It is the Fit Gear Hunter, and we are at the end of a trail. Been exploring an area over the last few mornings, and there's a lot to explore. I am like deep in it, much further walking than I meant to do. But today we're going to talk about the Coros wellness features that have been added. Namely, you have, and I think the biggest and most prominent one is the nightly HRV tracking, which is probably the most well-known physiological metric for tracking strain on your body and how your body is recovering. We're going to look at their stress tracking, and then we're going to look at other sort of wellness components that they have, as well as how they approach sleep, just as a sort of a quick review. And the wellness check. So they've replaced what's called the HRV index, which would have been a spot check using your watch every morning to track, you know, how your HRV is in a manual capacity. Now they've added a wellness check, which takes 5 physiological metrics in. There's not a lot to see on the watch itself, so we're going to look at what you see on the app itself. So, you know, we're just going to dive into the app. We're going to look at it compared to some of the other wellness features. Now, when you look at Coros has long been really competitive on the training load side. So I haven't been wearing a Coros device for my actual training recently, so you won't see a bunch of training stuff, but it has your training status, it's got a training load tracking, all really good stuff. And your recovery status, your countdown for your overall estimated recovery time from one hard workout to the next. They track a very mimicked plan from what you might see with Garmin or would see with aerobic and anaerobic training effect from each workout. So they've done a great job with training load or workout exertion, all those things over a long period of time, but they've always severely lacked when it came to wellness and recovery. So for me, they have not been an option. Their watches are always considerably dimmer than the market, unfortunately, like the screen brightness, and I wear 1.25 readers, so it's actually a problem for me because you can't turn it up. So that's been a slight issue, but the fact that they've been lacking a broader, more significant wellness and recovery tracking aspect makes it to where they just haven't been a watch that I've worn on the regular, but now they've added. And so let's dive in. Enough talking about it. So you can see at the bottom here, you have a few primary worthwhile components. I really value the resting heart rate, and I value that they actually give it on a little spectrum. So you can see where you stood last night relative to the low and high end of recent spectrum. That's helpful visually, just quick snapshot. Okay, I'm in the middle. You have your stress, we'll look at that in depth because you have to dive into that. Your sleep, we'll look at that. And then your nightly HRV. It shows normal, but it also shows I'm on the lower end. So we'll see in other apps, but I did hit it a little bit hard, worked out, you know. And so my HRV is lower across multiple devices, as it also is reflected here. And then you can see a summary of the wellness check. So just broad set of metrics. So it'll track your heart rate in your 15-second wellness check, your HRV, your stress at that moment in time, your breathing rate, and then your SpO2, your pulse ox, your blood oxygen. So that's what you get in one of those wellness checks. So the biggest thing we're going to start with is HRV. So it's not very glorious. The graph always looks like this. It doesn't look very detailed. I can't tell how many measurements they're taking. I really do like that it is showing the whole night. Not all devices actually show like a spectrum. And then it just shows your normal range and your last night average. So what I don't get from this is like a clear direction when it comes to how is my recovery? How should I feel about 24? And what we'll see in the rest of the spectrums is that that's the problem that Coros really needs to fix. They are now tracking all the main sort of quasi-physiological metrics, but they're not giving any direction on any of them. So here we see 24 in range of 23 to 31. Obviously, range of 23 to 31, 24 is low, but I'm not getting any like direction from it. So resting heart rate, well, you can see it across time. You know, I haven't worn the device at all times, but you can see when I have worn it in the past, you can check your history. But in general, you look at that little graph, I'm sort of in the middle, okay? And then on the stress side, you know, the stress is more of like a informational, and a lot of other companies are doing that. But you can see like when you're high stressed and when you're low stressed, I took the watch off for a little bit yesterday, so you have a gap in time, but overall it's tracking it throughout the time period that you have it on your arm. So stress, I don't find to be super helpful. It's now prevalent amongst a bunch of devices. So Whoop added a stress tracker. It just doesn't flow through to anything that I use or would use to feel like, what do I do with this information? So to me, but this is what it is and how you can see what the stress actually culminates. They do a fine job with it relative to other manufacturers. It's sort of like the same as everybody else. I just don't think it provides any value to how you're approaching your day necessarily. I don't think it provides any immediate direction for what you should change and how you should change it. So that's stress. And then the other thing is the sleep. They cleaned this up. This used to look terrible. How it presented itself, what they tracked in the stages, whether the stages are accurate or not. And it's, you know, it seems like only a couple devices are like really inaccurate, but not as inaccurate as everybody else. So none of it's really that useful unless you're taking a repeating set of information and it's compared to the same baseline on the same device, even if it's inaccurate, like combining your REM and deep sleep for your restorative tracking. So they don't do anything. So again, they give you this nice component and it looks better than it ever has looked in the past. And this is updated a while back, but it doesn't give you any direction. Like they're one of the few companies that now are taking these physiological metrics and not giving you recommendations based on it. So you have sleep and it just says, here's what you got. Here's your sleep stages, but it doesn't give you any recommendations for what that means compared to past things. So it doesn't really help in that regard, in my opinion. And you know, the wellness check is cool because it does track all these different areas. You can see your stress. It's like a snapshot. Garmin's got a health snapshot and that's nice. But again, you know, I don't know. The only time you would use this is if you wanted to do it when you first woke up, before you went to the bathroom, you did a wellness check, and that would be probably your best HRV number. And you can compare that to past averages. And that would be worthwhile. But I don't know when you would use the wellness check necessarily, unless you were having some internal issues and felt like something's wrong, I gotta do a wellness check. So when I look at it, they have, so what do I think? What do I think in summary of Coros's step up? And then we'll compare it, just sort of a quick glance at other features or other companies. I think it's great that they've added these components. They are now caught up with maybe 2 years ago with some of the other manufacturers, but they're not at all caught up with current times, current offers, because they don't have the aspects of like, here's what we think about this information. Here's some recommendations for how recovered you are, culminating together all these pieces of data that they're now tracking. So I think they need to get it together there and really be competitive, because I still think they are not competitive against some of the more comprehensive companies on the market. Like if you look at Suunto, you know, Suunto has really good training load tracking, and they do, you know, more of a recommendation. It's similar to the HRV that you would have if you could see this on, you know, if I actually was wearing a Suunto watch on the regular. But they do a good job at giving some direction based on, but they're tracking the same metrics. If you look at Whoop, obviously Whoop gives you all your last night's readings. Same sort of snapshot, which the readings, you know, summarized from the previous night are really helpful, and you don't have to take a wellness check to get it. But it gives you like a recovery score based on that information. Takes it, you know, and you know, their stress monitor's the same. It doesn't, you know, doesn't really give you any clear direction. And then the king of them all is Garmin, and Garmin takes all the information and culminates the stress into the body battery, as well as gives definitive recommendations for recovery level and HRV based on HRV, training readiness, all those different things. So I just think when it looks at Coros, they're catching up, but I don't know why they can't like catch all the way up. So this is the full summary for the Coros wellness updates when it comes to nightly HRV, stress tracking, wellness check, and the broad set of how it displays and looks and competes with others on the market. It's a figure hunter. Thanks so much for watching.